Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'm honored to present to you the honoree of the day. No other person. My open to silence.
Thank you so kindly. Please have your beautiful seats. Thank you. Well, Big Brother Ted, thank you for that elaborate introduction. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Robert M. Boto is our chief patron and the chief launcher. Beyond that, he is my dad, and I want to make that known publicly. He's not my biological father, but a great father figure, somebody who treats me like my biological dad, who's deceased now. And so, Dr. Boto, I want to recognize you in a special way. Our fellow officials of government, I see many of them in the room, so I want to stay away from trouble and now call your names, your individual names. I see many of them here. Heads of institutions, deputies, assistant ministers, directors. I see all of you in the room. Thank you for coming. Distinguished presidents and representatives of universities and colleges. I see many of them in the room, but one of them I'm constrained to single out. She's the president of the largest citadel of knowledge in our beloved country, Dr. Mapaya. I'd like to recognize her. And Dr. Mapaya is also here with many other presidents and representatives of universities and colleges in our dear country. Heads of organizations and our representatives. I see the president of the IE Town Association here, Mr. Ernest Masakwa and the team. And I'm singling up IE because that's my hometown. That's where my dad lived, was born, raised, before he moved to Zaza, went to high school, and graduated right there in Zaza, went to nursing school, stayed there and served the Lutheran Church in Liberia through the Covenant Lutheran Hospital for 30 unbroken years before his passing. I want to recognize you, Mr. Masakwe, and the entire team from our town. Kaye is actually called Hill in Pele. Salai used to be a little bit of history, used to be the Pele chiefdom in Lofa County, the district where Pele people from Lofa County hail. Until in 1987, and Mr. Bako, if I'm wrong with the history, just stop me.
You are correct.
Yes. Until 1987, when Salai district gained district status. Is that correct? Yes, it is. And that's how it became a district in Lofa County. And I can probably say that we are the first district. As soon as you cross the Fall River, you are into Salai district. In Lofa County, the first district in Lofa. But for many of you who traveled through Lofa, some of you didn't know that town that you enter beyond town and where you take the pictures and everything up to St. Paul River is also in my district. Let me probably tell you. Yeah. So I also want to recognize other organizations. Many of them are here. I'm not going to name all of you. I single up high because that's the town I come from, but I equally and truly recognize you. I see the president of the Civil Servants Association, Lord, shaking his head, Mr. Johnson. Right. I see so many other familiar faces. Let me specifically recognize my cherished family. As a matter of fact, my wife is not here today, very conspicuous. Many of you see that, and it looks a little strange. But she's not here with our first son, Melina, The both of them are due here next week, early, so we all will be spending the Christmas together. That's what matters, a whole lot. So she feels much better now. She'll be back, and I see her boss sitting and nodding the head. Dr. Birch, Linda Birch, Dr. Birch, I want to say welcome. But I have with me Zeke and BJ, and I see that they are carried away by their phones. Zeke and BJ, they're right there. Okay, the guys are recording. Sorry, guys, I'm picking on you. They are here with us, the three of us standing in the gap for all of us, for Mommy and Manina. We have other relatives here. My in-laws are all there. My siblings are there. Everybody, and very good friends. Some of my siblings I know who were not related, but are there. We can go to bed and sleep, trusting that we have each other's back. I recognize all of you in this room. I want to recognize the Deputy Director General for Human Resource Management and Policy, Honorable Darlington A.B. Smith, at the Civil Service Agency. He's also here with the entire team from the CSA. And now, let me also recognize special friends who came here to grace this occasion, to honor me today. From the depth of my heart, I recognize and appreciate all of you. Members of our precious media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens. Today is a day of gratitude, a day of meaning, it's a day of national purpose. And I want to say we are not just gathered here merely to unveil a book or to celebrate a PhD that was earned in February early this year, conferred for that matter. But I symbolically received it when I walked the stage in Chicago on November 2. And I was also privileged and honored to address the ceremony, the convocation ceremony, as a graduate commencement speaker, which you just saw. Yes, thank you. That was not just an honor for me, it was not a question of honor. That's a national pride. I hold that to Liberia because it's Liberia's made me, and I'm very proud as a Liberian. And I'm always proud to say I'm a nationalist. I believe in Liberia. I believe in almost everything local, and that is my passion. We are here to honor a journey, one that really demanded resilience, discipline, and sacrifice, and to place into the hands of Liberia and the broader scholarly community a work of evidence. The study that we've talked about here today, people have talked about, is grounded investigation of gender inequality in Liberian workplaces. Its cost to performance, to well-being, and to governance outcomes in our country. That's why this moment is also profoundly personal for me. It is the celebration of a PhD earned through rigorous scholarship, the privilege of serving also as the 2025 graduate commencement speaker of Adler University in the United States, and the launch of my dissertation, now a book born out of the commitment to contribute knowledge that improves people's lives, that strengthens institutions, and advances societies. The true story of the journey behind the scholarship. This PhD pursuit demanded more than intellectual effort. It demanded endurance. I pursued this doctorate with the conviction that research must serve humanity, not sit on the shelf, not sit on the shelf, not at all. I wanted to produce evidence that can shape policy, workplace systems, and people management practices in Liberia and beyond. In that case, a balanced, demanding job responsibilities, family obligations, and a structured discipline of doctoral work. Reading deeply, writing carefully, collecting data ethically, and analyzing evidence with integrity. The work required theoretical clarity, methodological rigor, ethical compliance, and the humility to let participants' lived experiences guide the findings, especially on a subject as sensitive and deeply cultural as gender inequality. So, let me digress a little bit and tell you about the role of my wife and my sons in the process during the journey. So I want to say specifically to her, to my dear wife Joanna, your strength, patience, and prayerful support were not simply helpful. They were foundational. You carry the weight of our family when the demands of research and my job responsibilities competed for time. And to you, our three incredible sons, Melina, Zeke, and BJ, your love, your pride, and your constant reminders of why purpose matters gave me energy whenever fatigue tried to win all of us. In many ways, ladies and gentlemen, this book carries your fingerprints through sacrifice, understanding, and unwavering encouragement. Why this work matters for Liberia. Gender inequality in workplaces is not only a social justice concern. In the language of industrial organizational psychology and public administration, it is also a human capital utilization problem. That means talent suppressed and wasted. It is also a performance problem. That means motivation, engagement, and productivity decline. It is also a well-being problem. That means stress, burnout, and psychological insecurity rise. And it is also a governance problem. That means fairness, accountability, and institutional legitimacy weaken. So, in other words, this research confronts a hard reality. When women experience wage inequity, blocked advancement, discriminatory norms, and unsafe work climates, organizations underperformed and nations will definitely pay the price. So what's the direct link between my PhD and my role as Director General of the Civil Service Agency? As Director General of the Civil Service Agency of Liberia, my work is fundamentally about people systems, how the state attracts talents, develops competence, evaluates performance, ensures fairness, and delivers quality service to citizens. So, my PhD in industrial and organizational psychology directly strengthens how I approach public service reform because it provides scientific grounding in human resource management and merit systems, recruitment, selection fairness, job fit competency-based systems, and workforce planning. Grounded also in performance management, expectations, evaluation, motivation, engagement, and organizational justice. Grounded also in organizational development, culture, leadership, change management, training, transfer, and continuous improvement. Grounded also in employee well-being and psychological safety. Trust, dignity, protection from harassment, and climate building. grounded also in public sector reform outcomes, improving efficiency, professionalism, productivity, and citizen-centered service delivery. In short, this research is not separate from my leadership role. It is a blueprint for stronger systems. So let me give you some of the strategic insights from the literature of this work. This study was anchored in scholarship across industrial organizational psychology, gender studies, governance, and organizational behavior. And it integrated several strategic realities highlighted as follows. Gender inequality is structural, not incidental. It is embedded in promotional systems, pay structures, workplace culture, informal power networks. Also, in work environment shapes performance. Unfairness and exclusion increases stress and reduces engagement and productivity. Support climates strengthen commitment and performance. Policies without enforcement create paper equality, as in PAPER, paper equality, meaning living on the shelf. Organizations may adopt progressive policies, but inconsistent implementation sustains inequality. Psychological safety is central to performance, and it's true. When employees fear retaliation or stigmatization, voice and innovation significantly decline. Intersectionality matters. Women's experiences are shaped not only by gender, but also by class, age, ethnicity, education, and other identity-linked barriers, meaning one-size solutions often fail miserably. These insights form the foundation upon which the dissertation's qualitative inquiry was designed. Let's look at the methodology. And I'm going to give you an overview of the qualitative approach. The study used a rigorous qualitative framework because gender inequality is not merely statistics. No, it is a lived experience shaped by culture, by power, and by daily workplace practice. So, the research helps us to understand better how gender inequality in Liberian workplaces affect employees' performance and psychological well-being, and which mechanisms drive these very effects. The constructivist paradigm was adopted, meaning that reality is understood through people's interpretations of their experiences within social and cultural contexts. The phenomenology design was used because it captures the essence of lived work experiences, especially where discrimination and bias are normalized or hidden. A total of 9 professional women identified in the book as P1 to P9. So P stands for participant when you are reading. So it's participant 1 to participant 9. And sectors from which they were selected were public administration, non-governmental organizations, education, health, and related formal institutions. Targeted recruitment was done through social media outreach. We use Facebook, we use LinkedIn, we use several other approved by the university, and supported by a study flyer outlining the eligibility criteria, the purpose of the study, voluntary participation, confidentiality, assurances. So, individuals who were closely connected to the researcher were excluded to perceive integrity and neutrality. Yes, to maintain the credibility of the research. So we use similar structure, key informant interviews, and approximately 30 to 1 hour per research participant. We interview them, and semi-structured interviews allow consistency across participants while giving space for depth, narrative, and context critical for sensitive topics like discrimination and harassment. Informed consent and confidentiality were applied throughout. Anonymization was considered very highly. Participants were de-identified using codes P1 to P9. Transcripts and documents were stored using the HRPAA compliant recap protocols. Those of you who are researchers, you understand that's a standard measure for storing, securely storing data and documents. And there was total ethical alignment. Procedures followed recognized research ethics standards for human subject protection in keeping with the American Psychological Association. So we use thematic analysis guided by Brown and Clark theory. So the process was simplified and was very accurate. And that went across 5 key approaches. Familiarization, meaning repeated reading of the transcripts to ensure that we remove anomalies and variables that did not matter to us in the analysis. We use open coding system to identify meaningful statements related to inequality, performance, and well-being. We use team development, grouping goals into coherent teams such as pay inequity, advancement barriers, harassment, and policy gaps. And we use the software Vivo support to organize the codes, to compare patterns, and to strengthen analytic structure. And finally, we follow established credibility check system. We did member checking, where interpretations were validated against participants' meaning and intent. So, that took us directly to our findings and the analysis. So results were organized around research questions and supported by cross-participants patterns, involving all the participants, from participant 1 to participant 9. Finding number 1, and these are the critical findings. Finding number 1, career advancement disparities as the performance and well-being barrier. The key participants most associated with these findings are participants 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7. And here's what we found. Many participants describe promotion and professional development pathways as influenced by informal networks, by favoritism, and by subjective decision-making. Participants indicated that access to training, scholarships, and leadership opportunities was frequently inconsistent and often shaped by personal interest rather than merit. So here's what most of them said. It reduced motivation, limit skill building opportunities, constrain leadership readiness, and that's how it affects performance. They also said frustration, emotional fatigue, lowered confidence, and chronic discouragement affect well-being. So What's the strategic insight as a result? It is clear that when advancement systems are opaque, perceptions of injustice rise, engagement falls, and turnover intentions increase, thereby damaging institutional productivity. Finding 2. Social cultural norms and stereotypes shape daily workplace outcome. Key participants most associated with this finding were participants 2, 6, and 7, and supported by parents from participant 3 and 5. They describe persistent stereotypes that position men as natural leaders, and that's significant. They said that stereotypes position men as natural leaders and women as less capable, especially in technical and decision-making roles. This produced subtle exclusion. Women were assigned safe tasks, meaning women are often considered and kept for tasks that men will say, this one is safe for women. Yeah, this one here will keep it for her. That's what many of them infer. Denying visibility, that won't give women visibility according to them, or treated as professionally secondary. So, what are some of the things they said that reduce participation, less access to challenging assignments, weakening leadership pipeline? You will not see many women advancing upward movement. That's how it affects performance and growth. Emotional strain, internalized doubts, demotivation, and psychological instability. That's how it affects the well-being of the individual. So what's the strategic insight? Stereotype threat and role incongruity weaken performance by diverting cognitive and emotional energy from work into self-protection. So the more they are kept to safe, quote-unquote, safe positions, the more they withdraw and make them less visible. And they reserve their emotional energies and then they focus on self-protection. For me, I will just stay here because that area is not for us, it's for the men and the leaders. That's the strategic insight that comes out of that funding. Funding number 3. Gender pay gap reduces organizational commitment and increases stress. So key participants most associated with this finding were participant 2, 3, 4, 6. And with broader resonance across participants, meaning many of them agreed to this finding, the pay gap emerged as both economic exclusion and psychological harm. Don't pay attention to that. Participants emphasized that pay inequity signals devaluation and unfairness, especially when non-transparent compensation systems where policies exist but do not protect women in practice. How does that affect performance and well-being? Let's look at performance. How does that affect performance according to the study? It reduces, discretionary efforts, weaken loyalty, and heighten exit intentions. Many people want to leave. Places toxic. Women are excluded, so they want to leave. Think about retention in that context. That's how it affects performance. How does it affect well-being? It causes, according to the study, it causes financial stress, emotional exhaustion, and decreased job satisfaction. That's how it affects well-being. So what's the strategic insight from this funding? That organizational justice research consistently shows that unfair pay reduces motivation, trust, and performance outcomes. was inconsistent and often influenced by hierarchy, favoritism, and male-dominated workplace culture. So they reported that policies are sometimes symbolic, meaning present in documents but absent in action. So that's what we're talking about, paper equality, present in document but absent in action. So how does that affect performance and well-being according to the study? Let's look at performance. It says burnout, distraction, decreased focus, and strained productivity. That's how it affects performance. How does it affect well-being according to the studies? It causes chronic stress, feelings of helplessness, reduced trust in leadership. What's the strategic insight? Policy without monitoring and accountability sustains inequality and intensifies cynicism. Final, finding 5. Discrimination and harassment collapse psychological safety. I'll repeat. Discrimination and harassment collapses psychological safety. Key participants most associated with this finding were participant 1, 2, 3, and 5, with contextual reinforcement across the sample. Many other participants also agree with this. So it says gender-based discrimination, especially harassment linked to power. And I'm going to repeat it. Gender-based discrimination, especially harassment linked to power, was described as deeply harmful by participants. Participants indicated that fear of retaliation undermines reporting, reduces voice behavior, and forces women into survival mode rather than contribution mode. So, how does that affect performance and well-being? Let's take performance. See, silence, it will create a situation whereby silence replaces innovation, compliance replaces creativity, and disengagement replaces commitment. That's how it affects performance. How does it affect the individual well-being? It says anxiety, reduced self-worth, emotional distress, and psychological depletion. That's what it does to the individual. And that has a correlation to the person's productivity and to the institution's productivity. So what's the strategic insight from this finding? It says that harassment and discrimination increase absenteeism, burnout, and turnover, while weakening team cohesion and institutional credibility. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, those are the 5 findings of the study. However, let me tell you what's coming. I will digress a little bit. So while I was doing my doctoral research, my dissertation, I created a parking lot and started to dump many of these insights into that parking lot. And out of that parking lot is coming a groundbreaking book that is going to be launched all by itself. The book is titled Self-Cleansing and Renewal for Successful Living. That book presents to the whole world, and Liberians are going to be very proud. I'm confident, I know they will be. Presents to the whole world what is going to be called the Joekai model of self-cleansing and renewal. So let me tell you a little bit about that. As we celebrate this scholarly milestone, And I will ask you to permit me to briefly introduce it. It is a major contribution to academia, and I'm glad Madam President and heads of other universities and colleges are here, because that book is going to go into the classrooms, not just in Liberia, but across Africa. Self-cleansing and renewal for successful living, grounded in an original conceptual framework. The Joekai model of self-cleansing and renewal is called JMSR. At its core, the Joekai model advances the profound yet straightforward thesis. Sustainable success, whether personal, organizational, or societal, requires intentional internal cleansing before external renewal can occur. Drawing from psychology, sociology, leadership ethics, philosophy, and theology, the model presents a disciplined and structured process that emphasizes 1. Honest self-examination and awareness, confrontation and release of limiting beliefs, unresolved trauma, and internalized burdens. Realignment of values, identity, and purpose. Renewal through intentional and ethical action. And sustained growth expressed through service to others and society. This work is intentional, designed as an academic and applied resource suitable for adoption in universities and colleges across fields such as sociology, anthropology, psychology, philosophy, theology, and leadership studies. It complements today's book by reinforcing, and today's book is the Effect of Gender Inequality. Today's book by reinforcing a critical insight that institutions cannot transform sustainably unless the individuals who lead and serve within them undergo ethical and psychological renewal. So before I take my seat, my friends, today our purpose is beautifully laid out. A celebration of PhD earned with distinction and discipline. A celebration of scholarly service, including the honor of serving as Adler University's 2025 graduate commencement speaker. A launch of a groundbreaking research book, The Effect of Gender Inequality in Liberian Workplaces, offering evidence, mechanisms, and actionable solutions, and a reaffirmation of public service purpose that knowledge must improve systems, dignify people, and strengthen society. To you, Dr. Robert M. Poto, Chief Patron and Chief Launcher, and my dad, thank you for your leadership, your support, and the honor of standing with me at this historic moment. To you, my dear colleagues, government officials, and I just saw a few of them walking, Deputy Minister. I also saw my good friend Kovazi walking. I'm sure other people walking too, but again, forgive me, I'll recognize you later. To you, colleague government officials, this research is an invitation to strengthen enforcement, accountability, and equity as pillars of national performance. To the media, thank you for helping knowledge to travel. To our relatives, friends, and well-wishers, your presence confirms that scholarship is not lonely, no, when the community chooses to stand with purpose, stand together. And to my dear wife and my 3 sons, Melina, Zeke, and BJ, this victory is ours. Your sacrifice turned pressure into perseverance, and your love made the journey meaningful and possible. Congratulations to you. To the esteemed presidents and representatives of academic and professional institutions, my profound gratitude for gracing this occasion. I am sure that you will adopt this research as a major resource material for your institutions, especially in the fields named. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present this book to all of you. I present it as a scholar practitioner, and I'm not calling myself that way. That is how the president of Adler University referred to me in her introduction when I addressed the convocation ceremony as scholar practitioner. And I'm not sure that was out of patronage. I had a strong conviction that it was out of merit. She did. This book offers evidence that can reform policy, strengthen workplaces, improve well-being, and unlock performance. If we can build workplaces where women are paid fairly, advanced, transparently protected from harassment, and empowered to contribute fully, Liberia will gain not only justice, but Liberia will gain excellence. Thank you.